We begin today the Gemara towards the bottom of Bava Metzia, actually the last line, where it says, Ma'ishna legabe Avram. We're in the middle discussing over here the psukim in Parshas Vayera and further that speaks about when the Malachim came to Avram Avinu. So the Gemara here asks, Ma'ishna legabe Avram d'chsiv kein tase kasher dibarta. When Avram Avinu invited the Malachim, they didn't refuse him. They said, yes, we'll do exactly like you said. And why is it that by light it says when he asked the Malachim to come into his home, they didn't want to come? It's over there it says he had to beg them to come into his house. Rabbi Lazar says from here we learn out when there's someone that's just a plain person on a small level, he asks of you something, you can refuse, but a person that is on a high level, a great person, you can't refuse him. So therefore, by Avram Avinu, the Malachim couldn't refuse him; they just came. The pasuk there says regarding how Avram Avinu served the Malachim, the guests. Ve'ekcha pas lechem. In the beginning, he says, "I'll take a loaf of bread for them." And then afterwards, the pasuk says, what did he actually do? Ve'la baka ratz Avram. Avram Avinu ran after the ox to go and shech the animal to come and serve them. So he changed his plans. What happened there? Rabbi Lazar said, Mikam, from here we learn, tzadikim oimrim at tzadikim, in the beginning, they say, I'll do a little, and then vaisim harbe. They end up doing much more than they originally said they would do. So Avram Avinu in the beginning said, I'll serve them some bread, and then afterwards, what did he actually do? He serves them a bakar, he serves them meat. Shayim, however, by the Sham, it's the opposite. Oimrim harbe, in the beginning, they promise and say a lot, but and even a little, they don't do it all. You know, from where do we learn this? May Ephraim. By Ephraim, when it came to burying Sarah, so what did Ephraim first say? Eretz arba meir shekel kesef. That this is a land, and you pay me 400 shekel kesef, and you can buy it. But in the end, the pasuk says, Vayishma Avram al Ephraim, Vayishkal Avram la Ephraim, Esa kesef, Ashadiv bebaznib neches arba meir shekel kesef. But then the pasuk adds two words, Oiver laseicher. What does it mean, Oiver laseicher? That this shkolim was Oiver laseicher. The leshakal minei kantiri, he didn't take from him regular shkolim. He took from him these coins, these shkolim that are extremely expensive. Kantiri. The ikaduchte, there's a place, the karole le tikla kantira, that there's a place that the tikla is called kantira, which is a kind of coin. Rashi says that every one of these shkolim is 100 mana, which is extremely, extremely expensive coins, and that's what he ended up charging Avram Avinu. The pasuk there says when Avram Avinu was serving the malachim kemach. In the beginning it says that he's going to use regular flour, and then ksiv seilas. It also says in the pasuk fine flour. So what kind of flour was used? Rabbi Yitzchak said mikan sha'isha tzara einah ba'erchem, that the woman she's more stingy with the guest yaisim ish, more than the man. So Avram Avinu wanted to serve fine flour, and she wanted to serve only flour. Then the pasuk says ksiv Lushi v'asiu ugais, that you should bake or you should knead and then make ugais, breads or pastries. But uksiv, and later on it says, did he serve these pastries? We never find that he served it to them, because it says vayika chema v'cholov. He brought the butter and the milk, ben abakar, and the meat that he shechted. But vilu lechem lo yaisi lekamayu. It doesn't say that he brought the bread that was baked for them. What's the reason? So Ephraim Miksha said, Talmid shel Rab Meir, he's a student of Rab Meir, Mishmei de Rab Meir, in the name of Rab Meir, Avram Avinu, Oichel Chulin B'Tara Hoya. Avram Avinu, he would eat his chulin with the same level of purity like when you eat truma or kachim. What happened was, V'Sara Imenu, Oisayayim Pirsa Nida. At that time, on that day, she became a nida, and therefore she was tamei, and the bread that she baked became tamei, that Avram Avinu himself wouldn't eat it. So Avram Avinu, he didn't want to serve his guests something that he himself wouldn't eat as well, and therefore he didn't end up serving this. Pasuk there later says, "Vayomru Elov."
The other thing was she made, she didn't become tamei.
Can you? This is the only thing that she made. The other things she didn't make. The other things it says Avram Avinu prepared velanar. There was other people that prepared it. The pasuk says, "Vayomru Elov aye Sarah ishtecha." They asked Avram Avinu, "Where's Sarah, your wife?" And Vayomru Boil. He said she's in the tent. What is the pasuk telling us here? Loidia, to let us know, Sarah imenu tznuah. He said that Sarah imenu is a tznuah, and therefore she remains inside. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Yitem Rav Yitzchak. That why would the Malachim asking this? Yodim hoyu malachi ashara Sarah imenu Boil haisa. The Malachim knew that Sarah is in the tent. Elamai ba'oil. What does it mean when they asked and they got this answer that she's in the tent? They were asking this question to get this answer that she's in the tent, to bring out the praise and the maila of Sarah, that she's tznuah and that she's inside the tent, to bring out the love for Avram to Sarah. Rabbi Yosef Rab Chanina says, why were they asking for Sarah? To send to her a kaishal bracha. The benching, they benched on a kais. They were a mezumin, 3 malachim. They benched on a kais and they wanted to send her from the wine, from what they benched. So one of the Mefarshim point out, this is interesting because it says before they didn't wash, they didn't have the bread. They just had chema, cholov, and basar. So over here you see that before Matan Torah, they would bench, and even bench with a mezumin, even when they didn't wash, even without bread. And therefore they were sending kaishal bracha to her. Tani Mishum Rabbi Yossi, the name of Rabbi Yossi was taught regarding this pasuk of Ayeh Sada Eshtecha, Lama Nokad al Ayeh Shebe Elov. When it says Vayemru Elov, they said to Avram. So on the 3 letters of Elov, the Aleph, Yud, and the Vav in the Torah, there's a dot on them. Why is there a dot on them? So Rashi says every time there's a dot on letters in the Torah, what it's telling you is don't read these words in its simple pshat. It has a different meaning. So what is it teaching me here? That when it says they said this to Avram, they didn't say this to Avram in the simple sense that they wanted to know, inquire, and ask, ask about Sarah. That's not what it was. Because Limda Torah Derech Eretz, the Torah here is teaching us Derech Eretz, that it's the proper behavior. That if a person is visiting with someone, so it's the right thing, it's appropriate that you ask by the husband regarding the well-being of his wife. And they here as well, they knew who she was, but it's just the right behavior. It's derech eretz to ask about the well-being of Sarah. But the Gemara asks on this, how could you say that that's the right thing? That's derech eretz. But Shmuel said, Ein shoyelim b'shloim isha klal. One should not actually greet a woman at all. And that means not only directly to greet and say hello to a woman, but also through the husband, to send a message through the husband, say hello to your wife in my name, is also not allowed. So how over here are the malachim asking about Sarah through Avram? So the answer is, and as I talked to Gemara, al yedei baila shani. If it's through the husband, it's allowed. So Rashi explains the pshat of the Gemara's answer is that to ask by a husband, inquire about the well-being of his wife, that's allowed. Meaning, even through a husband, to say hello to a woman through the husband, to send a message to the woman, to say hello to her, say hello to your wife in my name, is also not sneers, is also not allowed. But over here, what the malachim were doing is they were just inquiring, how's your wife doing? We're not sending a message to her. So that's what is allowed, and not only it's allowed, that's derech eretz. It says weiter in the pasuk achrei beloisi hoisel liyadno. So what is this pasuk saying here? Amar Rav Chiste, achashen is bala basar, after the skin became already worn out for old age, and v'robak motim, and she had many wrinkles. Then nis'aden abasa v'nispashtak motim. Her skin became fresh again, and all the wrinkles were removed. And v'chazar ayayfil and and her beauty came back like her youth. And here this was the bracha, and then she was able to have children like a young woman. Aksiv, the pasuk says va'adoini zaken, that Sarah didn't believe, or she was shocked. She expressed shock that she could not have a child because my master Avram Avinu is old. But then the pasuk says that when the Eibusha speaks to Avram Avinu, the Eibusha says va'ani zakanti, that the Eibusha tells Avram that Sarah said that I'm old, not that Avram is old. So the Leimaisa Kadosh Baruch Hu Kidakamri, the Eibusha did not tell Avram exactly what Sarah actually said. Why is this? Tana Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel learned from here, God l'shalom, peace is so great, Sha'afila Kadosh Baruch Hu Shinabai. The Eibusha also changes here. The Eibusha didn't want to say that your wife says that you're old. No, the Eibusha says that Sarah, she said about herself that I'm old. Shenemar v'titzchak Sarah bekirba v'goyme v'adayni zakin u'ksiv v'yem Hashem al Avram v'goyme v'ani zakanti. As the Gemara just explained, that she said adayni zakin, but the Eibusha says ani zakanti. Later on, this is already going to the next parasha, or later on in the parasha, after Yitzchak is born. So then it says, "V'tayme mi milel Avram nika banim Sarah." Who said such a thing? Who said it would be possible that Sarah would be nursing her children? So the question over here is, why does it say banim in a plural term? Sarah kama banim nika. How many children did she nurse? She only had one son, Yitzchak. Kama nika banim Sarah. That goes together. Sorry. Kama banim nika Sarah. How many children did she nurse? Rab Levi, so Rab Levi answers, on this day that Yitzchak was weaned from his nursing when he was 2 years old. Also, Suda Gedaila, Avram Avinu made a very big festive meal to come and celebrate this. So all the nations and all the people came and were saying and negative, and they said as follows: did you see these two old people? They found this child that they gathered and took in from the street, and they claim it's their son. And they're making this big festive meal, and just in order to sort of come and establish that, yeah, this is our child. And really, it's not their child at all. The Marsha over here says that this Mishta Gadol that Avraham Avinu made when Yitzchak was weaned from nursing, there's no such a minig to make such a Mishta. It wasn't the custom of those times either. So therefore people said, what is he doing? What is he making this kind of a festive meal for this Higamol Yitzchak Benai? He's only making it because he wants people should think and he wants to come and see that this is my son. That was part of the reason of why they were saying this. So Avraham Avinu, what did Avraham Avinu do? The real reason why Avraham Avinu did this, he was actually doing this to thank Hashem, to praise Hashem, and to show everybody the great mess that happened that he had a child at such an old age. What did Avraham Avinu do? He went and he invited all the great people of that time. And then Sarah, invited all their wives. All of them, when they came, they heard about this meal. So they brought their children with them as well. And they didn't bring anyone to nurse the babies. And they wanted to see what's going to happen. If the babies have to eat, are they going to be able to nurse from Sarah? And a miracle happened with Sarah. And she was able to feed these babies. And it was like two springs that was nursing milk and nursed all these babies. So now they saw clearly here. This is really the reason why Avraham Avinu made this meal, in order to be mefarsim the Eibsh's nest. And people were still saying about negative about Avraham, and they would say, maybe it's possible that Sarah at the age of 90 she can give birth. What Avraham Avinu at the age of 100 could give birth. Immediately what happened was the facial features of Yitzchak became the same as Avram. And that's when everybody said, Avram hoiledes Yitzchak. The extra words in the pasuk that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, as everyone saw that they looked the same. Now the Gemara says based on this, Ad Avram, until Avram's times, loyhaya zikna. There was no person that became old. You couldn't see that he's an older person. His beard stayed the same color. Everything, he looked like a young person, like in his youth. So therefore, what happened over here is someone that wanted to talk to Avram, he would make a mistake and speak to Yitzchak because they looked mamish identical. One that wanted to speak to Yitzchak, he ended up speaking to Avram. So also Avram Avinu came and asked Eibishter that they should see the difference between him and his son Yitzchak. And it brought the old age, the fact that a person's beard becomes white, and you could see that a person is old. Shenema, and that's what the pasuk says. Avram Zokeim Baba Yomim, that Avram was old, coming in his days. Ad Yaakov, now until Yaakov's times, it's another Indian similar to this. Loi have a choshe. A person did not get weak before he passed away and then pass away. When a person passed away, it was just sudden, from 1 second to the next. There was no warning signs for this. Also Yaakov came, Rachme, he begged the Eibishter that the person should feel the weakness before he passes away. It brought about a weakness. And the reason is so a person should be able to summon his children and speak to them and give a tzavah before he passes away. Shanam, as it says, that his father was sick and he knew that he was going to pass away. Another thing similar, Ad also Elisha, until Elisha came, there was no the cholish ve'ispach. Sorry, I went down the line. The cholish ve'ispach. Till Elisha, there wasn't a case of a person that was sick and got healed. Okay, there's a discussion in Mefarshim about this. Taisus in another place says it doesn't mean that there was nobody that ever got sick and got healed. It means that someone that was sick, that illness that he would pass away from, it never happened that a person then recovered from this. That's one shot. Now, Asa Elisha, but Elisha, it did happen that he was ill to the point that that this was the illness that he would pass away from, but he davened and he got healed from it. Shenema, as the pasuk says, "Va'alisha chala es chalyoi asher yomuz boy," that he was sick, that sickness that he ended up passing away from it. So Meklal, from this you can learn out the chala achriti. He was already sick before, but this was the actual illness that he ended up passing away from it. So the Gemara brings from a brayse, Tan Rabbanon shloisha chaloin chala Elisha. There were 3 times that Elisha got very sick. One time, the reason he got sick was because he had a servant Gechazi, and then because of something that happened, he pushed him away from him, and Gechazi became a Metzia. So because he did that, he got sick. Another time that Elisha got sick was Shagira Doivin or Duvin Betinaikis. He instigated bears to come and attack these children that cursed Elisha in the city. A whole story over there. So because he instigated these bears against these children, he also got sick. And then the 3rd time he got sick, that's when he passed away. Shunem, as the pasuk says, Elisha chala es chalyoi asher yomuz boy. So we dash in there chala, then es chalyoi. 3 different times he got sick, and then the 3rd time he passed away. Okay, going back now to what it said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that when you hire workers, even when you promise them you're going to give them food, so what's the food you have to give them? So you only have to give them, the Mishnah said, pas and kitnis. And all the Mishnah in the beginning of the Pedic here. So over here, I think, who was it over there in the beginning of the Pedic? 1 second. So this was, I think, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Let's see. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that all you have to give them is pas and kitnis. So Amalei, let's see again the words of the Gemara. El Achle is Chilu b'Melachat Seva Moilam Amanash En Lechem Alai Ela Pas V'Kitnis. Oh, so this is still in the story over there, where they promised to give much more, and the Mishnah said that you promise no matter what you give is not enough. So go and tell them that they only are going to get Pas and Kitnis. Amalei Rav Acha Berei, the Rav Yosef Rav Chiste. What's the right version of how you read this? Pas Kitnis Tnan or Pas V'Kitnis Tnan? So the difference is, pas kitnis sounds like you're talking about bread that's made from the kitnis, from beans. Pas vikitnis nan sounds like you're saying there's bread, and then in addition, there's also beans. So how do you read what the Mishnah says? Amalei, so he answered him, Halakim, I'm sure, like he said it in the Lashon of a Shvuah, Tzricha vav, you have to add a vav that it's pas and kitnis. And the vav is necessary here for this word, ki murdaya de livrais. Like the murdaya, which are needed for this is the oars that you use in a boat that's in this river. This is the name of a river. Livrais is the name of a river, which was a very rocky river, and you have to have the oars to row your boat in the right place, not to get stuck in the rocks. So just like you need the oars for that boat, so over here you need the vav for this word kitnis. And an interesting comparison the Mishnah Gemara makes here. Okay, then Reb Shimon Gamliel said, "Ein tzarech." You don't have to spell out to them clearly that you're going to give them only pas and kitnis. You always go hakoil, always follow minigamedina. Says the Gemara, hakoil asuyamai. The word hakoil, what is that coming to include? What more is it adding here? And says the Gemara, lasuye ha the tnan. It comes to add this that we learned, or the tanya we learned in the brayse. Hasoicher es hapoyo v'amaloi ke'echad ukishnaim ibnei. Person hires a worker and he says that the agreement is you're going to be paid like 1 or 2 of the workers in the city. In other words, I'm going to pay you like what the going rate is for the workers in the city here. So now there are different levels of workers, there are different going rates. There's an expensive rate, a cheaper rate. So nice and like a pachasha b'schiras. You give him like the cheapest rate that there is for people that are hired. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua, that's what Rabbi Yeshua says. Chachamim say, mishamnim b'neim. You evaluate not the lowest rate, not the most expensive rate, somewhere in between. And that's the Dakol Minig Amadina, like both of these opinions, that you go according to the minig of the rate of payment in the city. The following are the ones, are workers that can eat from the produce that they're working in the field while they're doing their work. As we'll see, this mission is based on the Psukim in Pashas Kiseitse, where it says that a worker, when he's working in the field, he's able to take from the food, from the produce, and eat. So the following is that are allowed to do this, are allowed to eat. A worker that's working with the produce that is connected to the ground. Now, so when the work that he does, when he's there in the field and he's cutting it, and he's already, it's gemar malacha, and so then he's cutting it, then he's able to take for himself to eat. when it's already disconnected, when you already cut it from the ground after the harvest. Until when are you allowed to eat from this? Only until when the work that has to be done for it to be prepared, and that Rashi says nigmar malachta means that it's fully prepared, that you would already be chayiv to give meiser of it, or you would be chayiv to give challah, which is after you already knead and make a dough out of it. Until that point, you're still allowed to eat from it. It's only something that we're only talking about things that actually grow from the ground. It's not if a person is working with things that are talush, that are disconnected, but they don't grow from the ground, b'chlal. So then that over there, a person is not allowed to eat from it at all. The following are the workers that are not allowed to eat from what the food that they're working with. If he's doing work with the produce that's in the ground, but it's still connected to the ground. There's different work that has to be done. Rashi brings an example, Menachish b'B'Tzalim, a person that is pulling out the weeds that there are amongst the onions that are growing. So it's not yet the time of harvest where he's cutting and taking out the onions, but when it's still connected to the ground, you're not allowed to take from it and eat. Or if a person does work with things that are talish from the ground, if a person does work with milk or cheese or whatever other kinds of foods like that are not work with things that grow from the ground, sorry, let me correct that again. The Mishnah here is still talking about something that grows from the ground. But if it was already cut from the ground, after the work of it was already completed, that now it's chayiv and meiser. So at that point already you can't eat from it. And then, or something that doesn't grow from the ground. That's the point I mentioned before. A person, let's say, is working with milk and cheese. These are things that don't grow from the ground. Over here, there's never the heter to go and eat from it while you're doing your work. From where do we learn this halacha that a worker could eat from this produce of what's mechubah to the ground? The pasuk says, "Kisavai bekerem reyacha v'achalta." That you're working in the vineyard of your friend and you can eat from it. This pasuk is talking about this worker. And then in the end of the pasuk there, Rashi brings, it says, Val kelyecha lo yisitein. So what this means is that we're talking over here when you have your kalim, when you're actually taking from the grapes, you're cutting it, you're putting it into a basket or you're putting it into a keli. That's the time when you're cutting it already from the ground that you're allowed to eat. You're not allowed to put it into a keli, but you're allowed to eat it without putting it into a keli. That's the source of this halacha. Says the Gemara, Ashkechon Kerem. So this pasuk says this halacha regarding a worker in a vineyard. Kol mili minola. How do I know any other things? The Mishnah said anything that's mechuva lekarka that you're working with, you can eat from it. How do I know everything else? And says the Gemara, Gamrina mikerem. We compare everything else that you work in the ground to the vineyard. Ma kerem, just like the vineyard, miyuchad. What is it? What's it's unique about it? Davash gedule karka. It grows from the ground. Ubishaz gemar malach. And as we see from the pasuk, it's only when you're already cutting it that's when you can eat from it. Anything else that grows from the ground, bishaz gemar malacha. When the work is done and you're cutting, a worker is allowed to eat from it. Ask the Gemara, how can you compare it to a vineyard? I'll tell you that maybe by a vineyard you find a unique stringency that the owner has to give away. By a vineyard, when you have the grapes that grow not in the regular clusters, the way they grow spread out in these clusters, in these big clusters, they grow like just in one straight line. So over there, those have to be left for poor people. So maybe only because the Torah says that the owner has to give away oilalois, so similar, only by a vineyard do you have to allow your worker to eat from it. So how can you compare it to anything else? And says the Gemara, Gamrina mikama. We learn out from another pasuk where it also says kisave bekamas reyacha. There it also says that he's allowed to eat from it. So kama refers to the grains and the things that grow and are standing in your field. So the Gemara says kama gufim minalon. What's the pasuk that it says by kama? The chsiv kisave bekamas reyacha v'katafta melilas biyadecha, and you're gathering from the kernels in your hand. So over there as well, we see from what's growing from the ground, and you're already finishing, you're gathering, or you're cutting, you're allowed to eat from it. But so we're compared from there that anything that grows from the ground, the pile can eat from it. But again, the Gemara asks, by the grains, you make challah from it, and over here there's a special mitzvah of giving challah, so there's this unique stringency regarding kama. How could I compare anything else that grows from the ground? Because now the Gemara interjects and says, when it says the term of kama, how do you know the term of kama that is refers to grains that you make dough out of it? That's chayiv and chala. Dilme kol kama rachmana. Maybe kama means anything that stands and grows in your field, so it doesn't only include things that you make challah from it. So the Gemara says, no, we know that the term kama refers to things that you make challah from it, because asya, kama, we compare the term kama that it says here to the term kama that it says by the carbon oimer. Ksiv hacha, kisavai, b'kamas riyacha. Or ksiv hasan, by the carbon oimer it says, mihachel chermesh b'kama. When the sickle it comes to cut in the beginning of the season, to cut in the standing wheat, or it's not wheat actually, over there it's talking about barley. But it's talking about barley that you make a challah, you make a dough out of it, that is the mitzvah of challah. Ma'asam kama de mechayve b'challah. There it's talking about barley, that when you make a dough from it, you chayav challah, af hachanami, kama de mechayve b'challah. So maybe here, it's kama would be only the grains, that you make dough out of it, and it's chayav challah. How could you learn from the term kama that anything that grows on the ground, a worker can eat from it? So if so, Gemara comes back. The question that we said still remains that the kama is chayiv and chala. So says the Gemara. So we have two sources here. We had from the vineyard and we had from the grains. So kerem yichiach. We go back to learning it from kerem, but you can't learn from kerem, as you said before. Mala kerem sheken chayiv ba'ililis. Kerem has its stringency that you chayiv in the oililis. Kama techiach, but kama will prove that stringency of the oililis is not the reason for the halacha that a poil could eat. Now this limud goes from one to the other. Each one has a different stringency. So what do we say? What's the cause for the halacha? Not the unique stringency that each one has. Rather, hatzat, hashavasheben, the common denominator of the two, which is shekain, davish, gedule, karka. Both the kama and the kerem grow in the ground. Ubishaz, gemar, malacha. When you're finishing the work and you're cutting from it, the work is allowed to eat from it. Afkal, davish, gedule, karka, bishaz, gemar, malacha, the payal is allowed to eat from it. That's the limit from both together, from kama and kerem. But the Gemara still asks further, however, both the vineyard and the grains that grow in your field, there's still something unique about this. And not necessarily could be compared to anything else that grows in the ground. Both of them, there's a possibility to bring from it on the mizbeach. This is regarding the vineyard, that's the nesachim that you pour in the mizbeach, and regarding the grains, that's the carbon mincha, the flour that's used. So how do you know to compare everything else? Now the Gemara says, "V'asanami zayis." I can learn out that olives that should have the same halacha that a poil can eat from it, because there is tzad mizbeach. Because by olives there's a tzad mizbeach. So, but not anything else though. Only olives. So now the Gemara interjects here and asks, "V'zayis b'meh tzadasi." You're telling me that I could compare and learn out from this tzad hashav. I can learn out that olives as well, a poil can eat from it. You don't have to learn it out from the kerem or from the kama. Hu gufe kerem ikri. Olives, in the lashon of a pasuk, you see that olive trees are referred to as kerem, with the term kerem. There's a pasuk that says, "Vayivra migadesh v'ad kama v'ad kerem zayis." By Shimshon it says that he burnt down all the piles of wheat and the kama and kerem zayis. So we see that a zayis is referred to as a kerem. But the Gemara answers that's not a question. Amarav Papa, kerem zayis ikri. It's not called a kerem. Kerem is a vineyard. It's called kerem zayis. Kerem stam elo yikri. A plain kerem, that's only a vineyard. So now the Gemara comes back and says, if so, mikol mokem kasha. Our question remains a question. How could you learn out from this tzad hashava? Maybe it's only something that has a tzad mizbeach, but not everything else that grows from the ground. Ela mashmul. So Shmuel says the limit is as follows. O makra, the pasuk says the chermesh, and you have the sickle that you're cutting the things that grow. Why is the pasuk specifying this, that you cut with a sickle? L'rabbis kol bali chemesh. It's specifying this to say that anything that grows from the ground and you cut with a sickle, the halacha of the pile eating from it applies. So the Gemara asks, how could you learn from this word chermesh? V'hai chermesh mi boyele. The word chermesh is coming to teach something else. B'shas chermesh achayil. When you're cutting, that's when the pile could eat. Shaloi b'shas chermesh loy teichel. But if it's before you're cutting, you can't eat yet. As we saw in the Mishnah, when it's still attached to the ground, you can't eat from it. That's what the word chemesh is coming to teach. And says the Gemara, no, but ahu mivel kelyacha loisite nafke. As we said before, that you see from the pasuk where it says kisave bekerem reyacha, and it says that don't put it into a keli. You can just eat with your hands. From that, you understand that you're talking about the grapes that you're already cutting you're already taking it off from the vineyard. So from that pasuk, you see that it's only when you're cutting. So the Gemara says, okay, so we have the limud over here, chermesh. Chermesh is the source that for anything that grows from the ground, the poil can eat from it. But the Gemara asks on this, tainach, the bar chermesh. That is a source for things that are cut with a sickle. But the lav bar chermesh minolan. Still, there are things that grow from the ground that you don't use a sickle for it. How do you know that a poil can eat from anything that's mechuber lekarka? Rabbi Yitzchak, so Rabbi Yitzchak answers and says and adds to this, Omakra, we go back to the pasuk that we brought previously, kama. We learn out from this that it says the term kama, which is larabba is kol bale kama. It includes anything that's standing and growing in the field. So the Gemara right away explains or asks, V'ha'amrit kama, kama de mechayv is b'chala. But didn't we say before that from kama we can't learn out that it includes everything? Because kama only means something that's going to be chayv and chala, like the grains. Answers the Gemara, no. When do I say that the word kama here is compared to the kama that it says by the oimer, that means only something that you make challah from it? That's before we had the word chermesh that tells us anything that you cut with a sickle. So then I could say it's only limited to what they make dough out of. Now that I know from the word chermesh that anything you cut with a sickle, then the poil can eat from it. So that includes even things that you don't make a dough out of it, that's not chayiv and challah. So now if so, kama lamali. Now the question becomes, so what is the Torah writing with the word kama? Can't just be talking about the grains, because I know that you're chayiv, that the poil can eat even from things that are not chayiv and challah. So now the word kama is extra here. So the kama is, larabba is kol bale kama. Kama is coming to say, like the drasha that we said, anything that is standing and growing in the field. Okay, so now, in other words, the conclusion of the Gemara is, from chermesh and kama together, you learn out that it includes anything that grows in the field, anything that's mechober lekarka. So after this, the Gemara says, if so, v'hashta, the nafkala mechermesh umikama. Now that we learn out from this that the Torah says, any worker that's working with a sickle in the field, and it also says kama, anything that's standing in the field, that the poil can eat from it. So kisavoy bekerem reyacha lamali. Why does the Torah have to write separately that in the vineyard that he can eat from it? Why would I understand automatically that a vineyard is included in this? Rav answers that pasuk there, kisavi bekerem reyacha lehil chayso. There's a lot of details in this pasuk that it's being written to teach you the details of this halacha of exactly what and how the worker can eat. Kedetanya, as we learned in the Braise, kisavai, the first words in the pasuk, it says kisavi, he comes. Nemakam bia uses here the term of sava, he comes. V'nemalalon le'savai olav hashemesh. Also the term that the sun should not come down on him. That's also talking about a worker over there. When you pay a worker, ma'alalon b'poyla kasem medaber, you should not pay him if you work during the day. Don't pay him after sundown. Afkan b'poyla kasem medaber. This is the source of how we know that we're talking about a worker that you have to let him eat from the field. Then when the pasuk says bekerem reyacha, what does this mean to say here? That this is in your friend's vineyard, v'loy bekerem kuti. That's coming to say that in your friend's vineyard, you can eat from it, and you can only eat from it and not put into a keli. There's limitations how you eat. You eat with your hands, but not just filling your basket. But not by a kerem of a kuti. If you're working by a vineyard of a guy, you can just take and eat from whatever you want. There's no limitation. That's what it's coming to teach. So the Gemara asks on this, why do I need this drasha?
Even a clay you put?
Yeah, by a guy you could put even in a case. This is Rashi's pshat. Somebody's trying to learn different, but this is Rashi's pshat. Gezel kuti. Also, according to the opinion that says that you're not allowed to steal from a guy, so here the pasuk is saying, but if you're a worker by a guy, you're allowed to take and eat from him whatever you want. But there's an opinion that says that stealing from a guy is anyways, and in other cases as well allowed. If gzela b'chlal from a guy is allowed, so a worker, you need a special pasuk to say that he can take and eat from while he's working whatever he wants. This is the Gemara. So according to that opinion, the drasha is different. That when you're working in your friend's vineyard, you can eat from it, but by hektish, you can't eat from it. And then, in other words, you might have thought to say, as Taisus explains, that by hektish, even though usually there's a din of me'ilah, that maybe if here by hektish, when you eat from it, it's like any worker and there is no me'ilah. So we say no, there is a me'ilah and v'loy hektish. Further in the parsha, huh? No, gzela mutter poil mi boye. Yeah. Now, then further on the pasuk it says v'achalta. You eat. What does v'achalta mean? V'loy moitetz hanovim. You eat the grapes, but you can't drink. Meaning you can't suck out the juice or the wine, the juice that there is in the grapes. So the heter is only to eat. V'loy, and another thing it says novim. It says you eat the grapes. V'loy novim v'doverachi. You can eat just the grapes themselves, not take the grapes and season it with other things and then eat it that way. Kenafshecha, you eat like his nefesh, which refers to the owner's nefesh, like he himself, which means kenefesh balabais, like the nefesh of the balabais. Kach nafshe shel poil, so too the nefesh of the poil as well. You should eat similar to the way the balabais eats. What does this mean? Ma nafshecha oichol upater. Just like the nefesh of the balabais, he eats from the produce in the field, and when you eat outside in the field, it's not chayiv and meiser yet. You can eat before you give meiser. So too this worker is going to be potter. Rashi says you may have thought that maybe when the poil eats, it's like he acquired it. Allah is when you acquire, when you buy produce, even before it comes into the house where it's chayiv and meiser, but a lekeach is chayiv meiser. So it's saying, no, this poil is not like a person that bought it and it's potter. The last word of here, the pasuk says, so that you become satisfied. You can eat until you're satisfied, but not to overstuff yourself. And this is already the drush we had before. At the time when you're cutting and you're putting the fruits into the basket of the owner, then you could eat it. But if it's still attached to the ground and you're not filling up the basket for the balabas, you're not allowed to eat yet. And this Indian over here regarding the poil that while he's working, he is allowed to eat from it. The Rebbe spoke about this Indian a few times. There's one Sikh in Chelik Chavtes, Parshas Kiseitze. The Rebbe talks about the fact that every single Yid is the Eibish's worker, and just like a employer that has a worker, he has to feed him during his work, so too the Eibish has to feed and give Yidden everything they need, Bana Chaim, during the time when we're working and serving the Eibish here in this world. And there's also another place where the Rebbe speaks by Arichas about the two things the Pasuk talks about, the worker in a vineyard and a worker in the grain field, that it refers to different levels of Yidden serving the Eibishter, one with Kabbalah soil, one with the Geschmack of the wine and the grapes. The Rebbe has a beautiful Arichas about this in Sichen Chelik Lamed Dalet, Parshas Kiseitze.